Today, we're talking about a new gold rush. But this one, it's not happening on our planet. It's unfolding in the vast emptiness of space, and it promises wealth that's almost impossible to imagine. But with that promise comes a really high-stakes conflict over who actually owns the final frontier. To really get a handle on the stakes here, you just have to look at this number. $11.65 trillion. That's the estimated value of the precious metals just hanging out in asteroids near Earth. I mean, we're not just talking about wealth. This is a number so big, it could totally rewrite our global economy. What used to be science fiction is now the next great economic frontier. You know, it's a potential so massive that the physicist Neil deGrasse Tyson famously predicted that the world's first trillionaire won't make their money on Earth. They'll make it mining asteroids. And that incredible promise? It's fueling a brand new and very fierce space race. But here's the catch. Before anyone can stake their claim, they have to deal with a set of rules written over half a century ago. So, to figure out where we're going, we have to start with the original rules of the road. For more than 50 years, this one single document has been the bedrock of law for everything beyond our world. It was signed back in 1967, right in the middle of the Cold War. And the Outer Space Treaty was designed to be a kind of constitution for space. The vision was, really grand and optimistic. Keep our earthly squabbles from spreading to the heavens, and make space a peaceful place for all of humanity. And this, right here, Article 2, this is the absolute heart of the whole treaty. The language is pretty clear, not subject to national appropriation. What that means, in simple terms, is you can't plant a flag on the moon and say, this is mine now. No country can own it. For decades, that was the undisputed law of the cosmos. But now, that foundation is starting to crack. Because here in the 21st century, we've got new technology and the promise of, astronomical profits. And that's pushing nations and private companies to reinterpret, and some people would argue completely rewrite the original rules. You can actually see the shift happening in just a few key moments. It really kicks off in 2015, when a U.S. law gives American companies the right to own whatever resources they pull out of the ground in space. Then, in 2020, the U.S. let Artemis Accords build on that idea, creating a whole new coalition of nations that are ready to start mining under this new interpretation. And look at who's in the race now. It's not just the old superpowers anymore. You've got countries like Luxembourg and the UAE passing their own space mining laws. And maybe even more important are the private giants. Companies like SpaceX, Blue Origin, Astroforge, the ones with the actual rockets and tech to make this all happen. So what this has created is a situation with two competing legal philosophies, and it sets up the central conflict we see today in space law. How do you square those old idealistic share-everything ideas with these new commercial ambitions? Okay, let's break this down. The original Outer Space Treaty is a little vague. It calls space the province of all mankind. A later treaty, the Moon Treaty, tried to make that clearer, saying resources are a common heritage that nobody can own. But the Artemis Accords, they just carve out a whole new path. They argue that pulling resources out of an asteroid is not the same thing as claiming the entire asteroid. It's a subtle difference in wording, but it is absolutely critical. Here's a simpler way to think about it. Province of all mankind is like a huge international park, right? Anyone can visit, you can explore it, but nobody can own the land itself. Common heritage, on the other hand, is more like a shared family inheritance. If you find a treasure chest buried in the backyard, it belongs to the whole family and everyone should get a piece. The new Artemis Accords approach says, hey, you can keep the treasure you find just as long as you don't try to claim the park. And when you look at the numbers, you can see exactly where the momentum is heading. The original Outer Space Treaty has almost universal support, but that stricter Moon Treaty? Yeah, that was a total non-starter for any of the major space powers. But look at the Artemis Accords. They're business-friendly, and they've quickly signed up dozens of countries. It signals a really clear shift towards a commercial-first approach. Now, this split in how we think about space law, it's not just some academic debate for lawyers to argue about. It's creating a really dangerous legal gray area up there, and it has very, very real-world consequences. What you're looking at here is a visualization of all the junk currently orbiting our planet. It's over 8,000 metric tons of, garbage. Every single launch and every mission just adds more to this cloud, turning low Earth orbit into a high-speed cosmic minefield. And the problem is getting worse, fast. The amount of this junk has gone up by 50% in just the last 5 years. More activity,
especially when there aren't clear, universal rules of the road, threatens to make future space missions dangerously crowded, maybe even impossible.
And this brings us to a really controversial idea called safety zones, which is a key part of the Artemis Accords. The logic seems simple enough. A mining company can declare a zone around its site to prevent accidents. But critics see a very slippery slope here. I mean, if you require everyone else to stay away, does that zone become private property in everything but name? It's a loophole that could let whoever gets there first lock up the most valuable real estate in the solar system, which sounds a lot like it goes against the original treaty. So this all leads us to a fundamental choice about what kind of future we want to build out there in space. Are we heading for a new era of cooperation, or are we creating a lawless Wild West? At the end of the day, it really just boils down to this one question. With trillions of dollars on the line and these totally competing legal frameworks, the potential for tension, for real conflict, is just enormous. I mean, our own history on this planet gives us a pretty clear warning, doesn't it? Whether it's the South China Sea or the Arctic, fights over resources and territory are one of the main drivers of conflict. The big question for all of us is whether humanity is just doomed to repeat the same mistakes, but on a cosmic scale. It feels like we're standing at a fork in the road. One path leads toward a new global consensus, where all the nations come together to update the laws for this new era to make sure space stays peaceful and open to everybody. The other path? Well, that's a patchwork of competing deals, creating a fragmented, first-come, first-served free-for-all, where conflict seems almost inevitable. You know, that original Outer Space Treaty, it was born from a collective hope, a real desire to keep our conflicts here on Earth from spoiling the cosmos. Now, as we stand on the brink of becoming a true spacefaring species, the rules we write for these new frontiers will define our future, not just here, but out there. So the only question left is, what kind of future are we going to choose to build?